Can you imagine looking into the eyes of a man who tried to kill you? 30 years had passed, but in that silent room, the air felt like a battlefield. Hands trembled, chests burned. One stood to the right of the door, the other leaned against the opposite wall. Two survivors of a war the world has forgotten. That day, they weren't generals, they weren't soldiers. They were just two men with scars that didn't appear in photographs. The silence weighed like lead. The first step echoed across the cold floor, and the sound was enough to make everyone hold their breath. The enemy, the one who had once had his sights set on you, was now coming toward you. And then, the embrace, long, tight, charged with everything that had been unsaid in 3 decades. But to understand that moment, you have to go back to the hell where it all began, when the orders were simple. Eliminate the man in front of you before he does the same to you. What no one told you is that this man had a family, dreams, fears, just like you. It all began on a sultry morning, the smell of dust mixed with the oil of war machines. The streets still bore the mark of protests, and the distant sound of gunfire seemed endless. Two countries shared more than a border: hatred, open wounds, and promises of revenge. It wasn't just politics, it was pride, it was land, it was blood spilled for generations. A simple miscalculation, a poorly explained shot, and the lit fuse exploded into months of fighting. There, amid ditches and makeshift trenches, the two men who would embrace years later met not by name, but by their aim. One defended his village, the other advanced with orders to take the territory at any cost. Propaganda said the enemy was a soulless monster, but every fallen face on the field said otherwise. The war had an invisible master, profiting from every bullet, every tank moved, and they paid the price. And all of us, hatred was planted like a seed, watered daily with blood, and when the silence came, it was not peace, it was just the intermission for the next battle. If you're feeling the weight of this story, imagine living with it for 30 years. If you want more people to understand what really happened, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Let's continue together until the reunion no one believed possible. If this story has touched you so far, it's because deep down we know that wars don't end when the shooting stops. They continue within those who survive. And that's why I need you to help me spread this truth further. Like this video now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It's not about numbers, it's about memory. The more people hear it, the less room the lie will have to hide. You'll see how this war still hurts. Even 3 decades later, a painful gift. 30 years later, the bombs have stopped, but the shrapnel remains within. The two men who embraced returned home, each with a suitcase that doesn't show up at the airport. Broken memories. Names they can't say aloud. Sleepless nights. War didn't stay on the old map. It crossed invisible borders and lives in everyday life. It's in the price of bread that went up at the bakery. In the truck that didn't arrive because the route was blocked. In the insurance that became expensive. In the medicine that disappeared from the shelf. It's in the school that lost teachers. In the village that lost its water. In the city that lost its rush and gained sirens. Those who think they're far away don't realize that distance disappeared when screens shortened the world. Today, war travels in seconds, and with it travel suspicions, speeches, and fear. The past has become a notification, and no one can silence it. Even those who have never heard a gunshot feel the echo in their monthly bill and in the eyes of those who have given up on something. In hospital corridors, the present smells of antiseptic and suppressed tears. Waiting lists have grown like invisible trenches. There are mothers with bags of medicine in one hand and photographs in the other, as if holding on to memories will heal the open wound. There are fathers who trade their helmets for aprons and cook for neighbors who have lost everything. There are children who draw houses with small windows because they learned to hide. And there are soldiers who returned without uniforms, but never made it back completely. They sleep awake, wake up tired, speak softly so as not to disturb memories. The entire neighborhood learns the new language of fear. Avoid fireworks, turn off the news at dusk, arrange meeting points, keep documents near the door. Churches, community centers, gymnasiums all become shelters. In this improvised world, every simple gesture seems like a victory that no one applauds, because war has robbed them of the habit of celebrating. And when it rains, the roof weighs more heavily. The conflict also affects the wallet. Bread has become smaller. Fuel eats away at wages. The market weighs like a stone. Trade routes have been cut. Ports have shut down. Maritime insurance has become more expensive. Production lines have stopped as if someone had pulled the brakes. Screens amplify everything. A viral image changes the conversation overnight. Become digital trenches. Old friendships are torn apart by comments. Families dine without discussing politics because no one can handle another fight. Companies postpone projects. Cities pause construction. Schools routinely conduct evacuation drills. Borders that seemed open gain lines and new documents. Visas become tougher, inspections longer. And all the while, the two men continue to face the same question. How do you rebuild a life after what they did to each other? The present hurts because there's no time to heal. The market clock ticks. The pain clock is slow, and they never tally. The human toll doesn't fit on a scale. When asked who suffers, faces speak before words. A mother holds her phone as if it were the final anchor. She repeats that she doesn't want revenge, she wants news. A shopkeeper points to an empty shelf and the rent is due. He doesn't want speeches, he wants merchandise. A student keeps his passport in his pocket and tries to memorize safe routes between home and university. He doesn't want heroism, he wants classes. On the other side, there are those who transform pain into a stage. There are microphones, lights, perfect cuts, colorful maps that simplify the tragedy. Promises appear and disappear with the same speed. A handshake becomes a headline, a sidelong glance becomes a threat. Those who control the narrative always seem one step ahead. Those who live the story remain one step behind. And in the middle, the two men, one carries the guilt of an old shooting, the other the mark of that shooting on his body and in his memory. When they look at each other today, they see proof that truth carries weight, and that public silence protects private lies. There are also those fighting to repair the invisible damage. Health professionals teach people how to breathe without fear. Volunteers organize donations. Teachers reopen libraries in borrowed rooms. Neighborhood groups create collective kitchens, and each pot on the stove becomes a kind of prayer. Religious people of different faiths share the same room and try to forge trust where there is only distrust. Meanwhile, rumors sprout that seem true because they comfort. Someone records a video, someone edits a snippet, someone publishes it with a strong headline. Within minutes, the flame spreads. Fact-checkers are late to the fire. And how can they put it out without enough water? In court, cases drag on. In the streets, time flies. At the airport, suitcases circulate full of lives restarted. At the port, containers await releases that never arrive. In the fields, crops lose value before reaching the city, and you, watching, think, whose side am I on when the pain has no color, and the truth arrives after the loss, eh? And so we come to the present day of these two men. One works in a repair shed, the other drives a school bus and brakes carefully on street corners. They didn't know each other outside of the spotlight. Now they share the burden of remembering. When their reunion happened, it wasn't a spectacle, it was an ordinary room, simple chairs, glasses of water. They stared at each other and understood that time doesn't erase things, it only teaches us to read. One asked for forgiveness in a low voice. The other took a deep breath and said he wanted to sleep in peace. The embrace was the only language. That didn't fail. There, the present hurt, but it hurt like healing, because forgiveness doesn't rewrite the past. Forgiveness prevents the past from continuing to write the future. If the world listened more to the sound of arms meeting, it would choose fewer speeches that stoke the fire. And now, the question remains, what happens when this gesture is ignored, when fear wins and cynicism rules again? If no one does anything, if no one listens, tomorrow could be worse, and that's what we need to face now. Their embrace isn't an ending, it's a warning. The same flame that nearly killed them still burns in many places. And all it takes is the right speech at the wrong time to reignite the flames. History knows this script, a tense border, a nervous soldier, a shot no one acknowledges, and suddenly, peace becomes a memory. Old grievances are pulled into the square like flags. Lies gain uniforms, truths lose their voice. You want to know how tomorrow gets worse? It gets worse when humiliation becomes state policy. When honor becomes a remedy for fear, when negotiating is called weakness and shouting is sold as courage. The world always pays a high price when it chooses shouting over agreement, and those who pay first are those who have the least. The risk isn't just the bullet, the risk is the machinery, blockades that strangle cities, ports that stop receiving ships, insurance policies that make routes more expensive, miscalculated sanctions that crush workers but don't touch those in charge. A decision far from here doubles the price of bread in someone's home. A bang from the other side of the map knocks the coin out of your wallet. A factory closes because a SIM card hasn't arrived. A school postpones classes because gas is expensive. Modern warfare doesn't need to knock on your door to enter your life. It enters through your electricity bill, through your gas pump, through your shopping cart, and when your stomach hurts, anger finds an open door. Those who profit from chaos know this, and they work to keep the chaos going. There are also invisible risks. A digital attack turns off the lights in a hospital. 10 minutes of generator failure turns into tragedy. A city's water becomes murky, and fear turns into a line. An edited video leaks online, and within hours, a crowd rallies because of something that never happened. Cheap drones bring terror to rooftops where there was only silence. Those who think they are far away realize too late that far away doesn't exist. Everything is just a connection away. And in a weary world, haste becomes the enemy of truth. Those who profit by haste add fuel to the fire. Those who try to extinguish it arrive late. Tomorrow could be worse because it arrives quickly, and we are too slow to respond without falling into new traps. But there are ways. They don't appear with fireworks. They begin with a low voice and a timetable. Ceasefires monitored by Sirius. People, humanitarian corridors that work in practice, prisoner exchanges without theatrics, protection of civilians as a non-negotiable clause, verification missions that publish simple, public reports, neighbors who police borders without provocation, justice that works for the criminal, the victim, and memory, heavy investment in post-war care, therapy for those who return, schools with food and security for those who remain, work to rebuild and meaning to wake up, memorials that speak the truth, commissions that listen to everything, and a pact where leaders endure the pain of listening before responding. And there's the role of those who watch. Ordinary people change the course when they learn to check before sharing, when they decide not to become soldiers of rumors, when they demand a humanitarian clause from a company in their contract, when they donate to those who deliver, not those who promised, when they demand reports with simple goals from politicians, when they protect children from speeches that ask for sacrifices that aren't theirs, when the diaspora helps with remittances and cultural bridges, when universities train mediators, not fan groups, when churches and community centers set up kitchens and consultations instead of stages. Tomorrow may be worse, but it can be better, and it depends on a gesture repeated until it becomes a habit. You want a clear rule: protect civilians, always, and never accept that pain is the price of pride. The room was empty, but the air still held the embrace. It's curious how silence means more than any speech. 30 years fit into seconds when two enemies choose not to shoot anymore. What we see is not a miracle, it's a work. It's training. It's daily work against the memory that pulls us back. Anyone who's been to war knows that peace isn't a place, it's an exercise. Breathing, counting to 10, apologizing when anger demands revenge, exchanging the sharp reply for a sincere question. That's what happened there. The first two dropped the gun was fear, then came guilt, demanding a voice. The eyes spoke before the mouth. The body gave in before pride, and the embrace said the rest. There's no soundtrack. There are no fireworks. There are two men accepting that surviving is different from living, and that living requires courage on ordinary days. Away from the cameras when the doors closed, a simple lesson remained. Peace isn't a spectacle. Peace is routine. It's persistence. It's repetition until it becomes habit. Yes. Reunion doesn't erase guilt. It ignites responsibility. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. Forgiveness is a commitment to the truth and to protecting the innocent. Both know what they did and what they lost. The embrace wasn't a reward. It was a beginning. The question that remains is straightforward. How to transform a gesture into culture? Who will repeat this step when there are no cameras? Who will remain silent when the audience demands a shout? Who will sit at the table with those who think differently and insist on rules before narratives? Peace needs maintenance, tightened screws, simple reports, deadlines met. It dies in neglect. It is reborn in care, and care is everyone's job. Governments that protect civilians, neighbors who mediate disputes, schools that teach how to read versions, judges who explain decisions, reporters who return to their places, churches that open kitchens. Who endures this routine when the stage closes and the heat of the moment cools? The answer lies in what doesn't make headlines. In the repeated yes. In the patience of the home. Perhaps the antidote lies in simple places. In the school that opens early and guarantees lunch. In the health center that calls by name. In the bus that arrives on time. In the newspaper that checks before publishing. In the neighbor who knocks on the gate to ask if they need help. In the leader who talks less and listens more. In the network that becomes a bridge, not a trench. In the teacher who remembers there is another version. In the judge who explains the sentence without memorizing jargon. In the police officer who protects the dignity of those who erred. In the reporter who returns to their place after the camera has already left. In the businessman who fulfills the human clause. In the voter who demands goals and deadlines. In the young person who doubts the perfect meme. Small gestures change the wind. They are bricks that prevent the next crack. Peace requires method. Short meetings. Public minutes. Safe passage for those who need to leave. Open doors for those who need to return. Memorials with names. Fact classes. Emergency guidelines in the hallway. Protect lives first. No shortcuts. There are tough choices. Say no to comforting rumors. Say no to a leader who needs enemies to exist. Say no to profits that depend on the misery of neighbors. Say yes to an agreement that pleases no one but saves lives. Say yes to corridors at work. Say yes to caring for those who return broken from the front. Say yes to the memory of victims. Say yes to reparations that lift pain from the shadows. Say yes to missions that monitor and publish clear reports. Say yes to goals that fit on a page. Say yes to deadlines that can be measured. Say yes to maps that prioritize schools and hospitals. Say yes to a pact of plain language, one that doesn't hide abuses in the smoke of words. Without civilians as targets, there is no acceptable version. Without transparency, there is no lasting peace. Platforms that profit from disinformation must correct and limit their reach. Companies and risk zones demand clauses to protect workers. Cities prepare shelters, religions add care. The sum is the message. Today, the two men continued on. One still wakes up to slamming doors, the other still breaks before the corner of the old scare. They didn't become saints. They became possible references. One asked for help to treat his sleep. The other went back to school to change jobs. They visit families who have lost loved ones and don't apologize in public. They listen. They carry bags. They explain to young people that guns solve little and cost a lot. They repeat that peace isn't glamorous. Peace has a schedule. Peace has a schedule. Peace has a shared cost. Neither of them has forgotten what they did. Neither of them has forgotten what they suffered. They simply decided that pain doesn't need to rule. That pain can become a tool. That memory can serve the truth and not the cycle of revenge. The embrace was just a beginning. They now help former combatants with documents and consultations. They organize conversation circles. They call neighbors when they hear fighting. They visit the memorial on the day of the battle. When asked if they regret it, they say yes and continue to care today. So the question you bring to today's table remains, what will you do when someone asks for your anger as proof of love for your flag? Will you hand over the key to your heart to someone who promises glory in exchange for hate? Or will you remember the embrace that changed a scene and can change a city? Courage now means less noise and more care. Less theater and more work. Less revenge and more protection of civilians. Less certainty and more listening. Our time loves quick endings. This story has no ending. It has commitment. 6 words that fit in your pocket. Protect lives before any flag. Repeat as a daily prayer. If you fail, start over. If you get tired, rest and return. If provoked, count to 10. If you doubt, listen to those who suffered. If you have power, use it to prevent harm. Remember that distance doesn't exist when pain crosses screens. This embrace was a choice. Choices become politics. If a city copies, a region breathes. If no one copies, the map burns again. But for some, the past never stops bleeding.